Hello and welcome to today's pen review. Today I'm reviewing this pen. This is a Chinese-made fountain pen, and it is very clearly a clone of the Pilot Custom Urushi pen, which is a pen that in Australia retails for around the $1,900 mark. This clone retailing for between $35 and $45. So it's a clone. It's not a direct clone, but it is very, very highly inspired by the Custom Urushi, which is one of my grail pens. And when I saw this one come up a couple of times online, I was like, look, let's have a look at it. So it's vaguely kind of unbranded. On places like AliExpress, it is retailed as the JD metal fountain pen, or the big metal pen, or the JD x550, or the x550 metal pen. But there's no branding on it, except for on the nib, there is a little JD just there. So let's talk about the parts and features of this pen. I'll do a writing sample, little size comparison, all that kind of stuff, and then I'll talk about some pros and cons. So, top of the pen, big flat top there with the little sort of disc in it. The clip is on a cap ring. It's got a ball on the end. It's fairly stiff but usable. The cap swells quite a lot to this center band, which has got a gold band, then a little gap, black gap, then a bit more gold band with 3 stars engraved in one side and 3 stars engraved on the other side, which is very, very similar to the Custom Urushi, just without the branding. Then sort of tapered black section, and then the body of the pen continues along, tapers to a gold ring and black end with a flat, once again, the flat kind of end. It is a big pen. I'll show this in the size comparison, but it is a big pen. It's a heavy pen. Feels like sort of a lacquered brass or a coated brass of some kind, but it is a big pen. It is a screw cap, and it takes about 2 1/4 turns to undo. It's a fairly sort of smooth step down onto the threads, and they're okay. A little gold band, nice thick section that flares a little bit, and then a number 6 size nib, which on this pen looks tiny. I just have the Jinhao 9019 here with the number 8 size nib, and you can see the number 6 in comparison feels small, and on this size pen it does feel small, and it feels small in the hand with this nib size, and in comparison to the Custom Urushi, it is a much smaller nib. It is a cartridge converter pen, and a converter is provided, and the converter I've seen online it listed as being standard international. I've just grabbed a random sort of standard international converter here, and yes, it does fit, and it fits quite nicely. So if that's something you're wanting, great. But it is a standard converter size, and it's not the traditional Jinhao converter style one either, which sort of leans it away from Jinhao. It's also not the Jinhao kind of size. And that's the basics of the pen. It's just a steel nib. It's listed as a medium, writes on the finer side of medium. It's got a plastic bead, but it is a big, heavy pen. Repeat, big, heavy pen. Let's now do a size comparison. I'll show it alongside a couple of other pens just to put it into some context, and then we'll do a writing sample. Okay, just to put it into size context, I'm going to put it alongside one of my favorite larger pens, which is the my pen from Casey Giddens at Pens by Casey. This is a really lovely wooden pen, but it is a big pen, and this doesn't fit in a lot of cases. So you can see it's a little shorter than that, but in comparison to something like the Jinhao 9019, it is actually bigger than that pen. In a direct comparison with a Pilot Custom Urushi, which, as I said, I don't have one, it is ever so slightly bigger than the Custom Urushi, just by millimeters in certain directions, but bigger there than the 9019 from Jinhao, which is a big pen. And just for the sake of the exercise, here it is alongside my Custom Urushi 845. You can see similarities in the design elements, and remembering the Custom Urushi is like the big brother of the 845, so it's wider, it's longer, but you can see similarities in the clip and the clip band. The cap band has similarities. You can see these sort of 2 stars engraved on the pilot there, and then 3 on the side of the I'm just going to call it the JD, but bigger, girthier pen. If I just show you the nibs in comparison here, just to put it into context, number 6 size nib, and then the pilot nib there is just a little bigger. Okay, but for the official size comparison, I'll put it alongside the Lamy Safari. You can see it dwarfs the Safari. Big, heavy pen, as I said, big, heavy pen. Uncapped, it's not that different. It's a few millimeters longer, but not by a huge amount. The JD X550 does post, and it posts very well and relatively deeply. Another thing it takes away from the pilot there. But it's only slightly longer there than the Lamy Safari once again. So what are the specific dimensions of the JD X550 or big metal pen here? It is 157 centimeters when it's posted, so big pen. 138 when it is unposted, which makes it a very, very comfortable size in the hand, like superbly comfortable. Posted, it's 176, and it's not so much the length that is an issue with this pen posted, it's more the balance. The pen weighs 66 grams in all, 37 in the body and 29 in the cap. So you're putting a lot of weight on the back of an already sort of heavy pen, like 37 grams and at 138 millimeters. This is a very comfortable size to write with unposted. The section is girthy. Around the middle of the section here-ish was about 13 millimeters, and the pen itself around the cap is about 20 millimeters, so 2 centimeters wide. It's a good size, chonky pen. So we're going to do a writing sample now, and I just wanted to say, obviously, this is not going to write like the Pilot Custom Marushi. You are getting a steel nib here as opposed to a gold nib. Pilot gold nibs are superb. I've written with a few custom Marushis over the years, and they are absolutely divine. There's a reason why one has been on my list for quite a while. They are an expensive fountain pen at 1900 Australian there. But here we have a number 6 size steel nib in a pen that costs $35 to $45 Australian. You are not going to get the same writing experience as the Pilot Custom Marushi. But let's see how this writes in its own right. So we have as I said, I'm going to call it the JD X550 or big metal fountain pen. This has it's labeled as a medium, but it's very, very much on the fine medium end, even in comparison to like some Jinhao medium nibs. And the ink I have in this is Diamine Onyx Black, which is an ink I really enjoy. It's a very good, solid black ink. Okay, so you can see it's writing well. Let's just do this writing sample. Okay, it writes pretty well. It's not flawless, but it writes well. It's smooth, a bit of feedback, but there's no like particularly sharp, like upstrokes aren't the best, but it keeps up nicely. Quick writing. It mostly keeps up. It's sort of thinned out at one point across here, but generally speaking, it's fine. Reverse writing. It's a little sharper, a little drier, but dries out pretty quickly. But if you need to, you can get a word or two out. Flex. Like you can squeeze a bit of line variation out, but I wouldn't be pushing it. It's a steel nib. You can do what you want with it. Like, let's be honest. It's a number 6 size nib, so you should be able to replace it with other number 6 size nibs. In fact, this pen with like, I don't know, like a broad Yovo nib or something would probably be quite nice. Because it's a big pen. Also, the other thing I was going to say is it's not a comfortable pen for fast writing. At this sort of size, you are intentional with how you write. I've had this pen, I've been using this pen for a couple of weeks now, and it's not a pen I do long writing sessions with, but when I am writing, I find myself slowing down and being more intentional and more purposeful with it. It writes fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with how this pen writes. It's reliable, it's consistent. I've had no issues with it. It is what it is. So let's talk about some pros and cons. So what are the pros and cons of this fountain pen, the JD X550 or big metal pen, whatever you want to call it? Okay, as I've said a couple of times, very clearly, this pen is highly inspired by the Pilot Custom Urushi. And why not? The Custom Urushi is a brilliant pen. It's an amazing pen. And brands like Jinhao and a few other Chinese brands have been known to make pens, Wingsung for instance, with that 823 clone. They have been known to make pens that are inspired by pens by other brands. There's so many Mont Blanc knockoffs going around that, you know, I've lost track. So this is one that is very clearly inspired by the Pilot Custom Urushi. There are differences. This isn't Urushi. It's not ebonite. It's a brass pen. It's heavy. It's, you know, it's kind of clumsy. You know, different size nib. There's no Pilot branding. It's not trying to be a Pilot. It's just modeled off. And it's a steel nib. You know, it's a very different writing experience. Insanely different writing experience. It's just that the body shape and design is very clearly modeled off that Pilot. Other issues I have is that it just has a number 6 nib, which feels out of proportion on this size pen. I'm not going to lie. I love number 6 size nibs. I love the distance of that off the page from how I like to write, but it looks a bit odd on this size pen. Also, I really hate the capping threads. I think they are, like, it's hard to explain through video, but it's like, they don't feel like they engage in a nice way. Yeah, it's just kind of odd. I don't love it. And as I said, it's kind of clumsy, you know, like it's heavy, it's off balance. So those threads aren't great. It's a $30 to $45 pen from China, not a $1,900 Pilot fountain pen. But in saying that, there are pros. Firstly, the size and balance in the hand when it's unposted is very nice. It's a nice weight. You don't feel it back weighting. It's not uncomfortable to write with. It's good. And it writes really well. Like, I've got no issues with how this pen writes. I've had pens at much higher price points that haven't written as well as this, from bigger name brands, smaller brands, whatever. This one writes well. And at that price point, $35 to $45, you get a lot of bang for your buck. It's a big, heavy pen. It writes well. You know, that's not bad. It's not a, you know, piston or backfill or anything like that. Just a cartridge converter, but it does the job. And if you're thinking, you know, that you were wanting something like the Pilot Custom Urushi at 18 to 1900 Australian dollars, but didn't want to necessarily pull the trigger without trying something similar, if you can't get your hands on a Pilot to try it out, this is not a bad option, just to see if the size works for you. It's close enough to give you a really good idea of that. And also it comes in some different colors. So it's like, there's a yellow one, there's a red one, green, blue, black. It's nice. I got the racing green here. I think it's a very pretty color. I also got the green because I know that when I get a custom Urushi, it won't be green. I really love the look of that blue one that came out last year. But realistically, I'll probably get the black version because that ties in with my pen collection. But the green is nice. So yes, that's what you get for 35 to 45 Australian dollars in the JD X550 big metal pen. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel, I would really love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, and I'll talk to you soon.